Welcome to True Echo, where real strength echoes louder than hate. Today's story will grip your heart and fire up your spirit. When two young black brothers walk into an elite tennis academy, they're mocked, dismissed, and targeted by wealthy entitled teens. But what happens when they finally step onto the court, silences the room. Stay with us, because this story ends with the entire camp rethinking everything they thought they knew. The silver gates of Hawthorne Tennis Academy didn't just creak, they judged. Every inch of the place screamed money. Polished walkways, hedges trimmed like topiary art, courts groomed like Wimbledon dreams. Jalen Bryant kept his hood up. Not for warmth, he didn't need that. It was easier this way. Easier not to see every look. Every sideways glance. Every quiet doubt about whether two black boys from Decatur really belonged here. Their dad's old Ford Ranger groaned to a stop next to a row of glossy SUVs that probably cost more than their entire street block. Inside, Khalil was already unbuckled, eyes locked on the courts with wonder. "Is that real grass?" he asked. "Nah," Jalen said, voice low. "It's clay. Like, real clay." Their dad, Gregory Bryant, chuckled from the driver's seat. "'Bout time y'all felt what that was like." As they stepped out, the world looked up. A woman in all-white tennis gear glanced over her tablet, eyebrows tightening ever so slightly. A visor-wearing teen whispered to a friend. She giggled. Jalen caught it, scholarship kids. The words weren't loud. But they landed. Gregory said nothing. Just grabbed their shared tennis bag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked with them toward the registration tent like they had every right in the world to be there. Because they did. Inside the tent, a staffer's eyes did the same scan, worn sneakers, simple t-shirts, one bag. But when Gregory handed over their file, USTA ranks, school records, tournament placements, her eyebrows rose. "It's rare we get siblings making the cut," she said. "Especially at this level." Jalen almost asked what she meant by that, but Khalil gave him the tiniest shake of the head. Not now. They were led to dorm B2. 2 bunk beds. Nobody else yet. Just them and the quiet. The room felt like a challenge. The walls looked like they'd never known noise. "You feel that?" Jalen muttered. "Yeah," Khalil answered. "We hear." Back home in Decatur, they played on cracked courts, duct-taped rackets, and nets held up with bricks. Still, they won. Not always. But enough to be here. They didn't come to impress. They came to earn respect. And the first thing they'd learn, respect wouldn't be given, it had to be taken. The whistle came at exactly 6 a.m., sharp, cold, and unapologetic. A short man in a Hawthorne Academy polo blew it like his life depended on it. "Let's move, people. Breakfast ends at 7:30. On court by 8 sharp." Jalen groaned, swinging his legs over the bunk. His shirt hung loose off his frame, camp uniform, stiff navy tee with the Hawthorne crest and white shorts that looked made for someone else's body. Khalil was already dressed, lacing up their only good pair of court shoes with a steady rhythm that meant he was trying not to think too hard. They entered the cafeteria like ghosts. Tables buzzed with clicks and chatter, iPhones, AirPods, $1,000 smiles. No one looked up. No one invited them over. The boys weren't here to be liked. They were halfway through their eggs when it began. "So are you two brothers or clones?" The voice came from behind. Amused. Smug. The kind of tone that always tried to sound like a joke but wasn't. Jalen turned. A girl with piercing blue eyes and a surgically perfect ponytail stood behind them. Her name came quick, like a challenge, Sierra Trask. "That's my brother, Caleb." She pointed across the cafeteria to a tall teen who looked like he'd stepped out of a Nike ad. Caleb looked up, nodded once, then went back to his food like they were background noise. "You all talk like robots," Sierra added, or just pretend the rest of us aren't here? Khalil stayed calm. We're eating. Oh, my bad. She cocked her head, feigning innocence. Thought this table was open. Guess I missed the sign. Then she sat. On purpose. Uninvited. You could just say what you're thinking, Jalen said, jaw tight. Sierra smiled with a bite of sarcasm. I think you said it already. She stabbed a grape, stood, and dropped one last jab before walking off. Hope y'all brought something tougher than Walmart rackets. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said them, casual like flicking lint off her sleeve. Jalen's shoulders locked. Khalil's eyes stayed down. But something between them shifted, unspoken, electric. And the moment they stepped on court, that energy exploded. They arrived early, long before the entitled crowd. Not for attention, just to feel the clay under their soles, get a rhythm going. Warm-ups came easy, shoulder rolls, grip checks, bounce drills. Across the complex, Sierra and Caleb strolled in late, laughing like they owned the place. Their group followed, Mason, the son of a former ATP pro, and Zoe, visor custom embroidered with her name. They barely acknowledged the Bryant twins. But they didn't have to. That kind of power walked in its own air. Coach Darren Wexler stepped forward with a clipboard and a tired voice that didn't believe in small talk. Court assignments are on the board. Rotate every 20 minutes. No trash talk. No slacking. Then his eyes locked on the twins. Bryant's? Yes, sir, Khalil said. Wexler nodded, firm. Saw your film. Lotta potential. Stay focused. Footwork first. Always. Yes, sir. As he walked away, Sierra brushed past Jalen's shoulder. Barely. But on purpose. Coach Wexler better brace himself, she muttered, or he'll be saying your name a lot. Jalen didn't flinch. I'm not saying a word, he said quietly to Khalil, gaze still locked on the court. The drills began, forehand rallies, baseline cross-courts, serving rotations. Jalen and Khalil moved with quiet precision. It wasn't flashy. But it was clean. They hit sharp, angled shots without wasting motion, without the grunts and theatrics the other kids used to decorate their games. Sierra, by contrast, made every point a performance. Her hair flew, her shoes squeaked, her grunts echoed. Caleb slammed his serves with the fury of someone who liked being watched. But something subtle started happening. Every time the twins hit a clean volley, eyes lingered. Coaches tilted heads. Players paused. Surprise. It was there. Not just in the looks, but in the doubt that had been there before. That quiet, unspoken expectation that kids like them wouldn't measure up. It was crumbling. And the next drill, pairs, would crack it wide open. Coach Wexler blew his whistle. Partner up. No cliques. No besties. I want new combos. There was a shuffle. A few groans. Some kids clung to their circles. But Jalen spotted a short, stocky boy stretching near court 2. Jonah. Quiet eyes. Fast hands. Jalen approached. You good to run pairs? Jonah shrugged. Sure. Khalil got paired with a girl named Lexi, quick footwork, polite nod. That was all he needed. The drills that followed weren't about show. They were about consistency. Volleys, sprints, split drills, double switches. Jalen and Jonah synced quickly. Khalil and Lexi even drew a quick, nice combo, from one of the assistant coaches. Meanwhile, Sierra and Caleb, they were busy chest bumping and posing for Insta stories. But in the middle of a baseline drill, Jalen fired a clean backhand down the line. The ball clipped the clay. No argument. Until Sierra raised her hand. That was out. Coach Wexler walked over, raised an eyebrow. From where I stand, it caught the line. Sierra scowled. Said nothing. Just walked back to position. And for the first time, Jalen smiled, not smug, just sure. Not of himself. Of what was coming. Because the real match was just getting started. That night, the dorm buzzed with the light chaos of movie night. Kids piled onto beanbags, popcorn bags ripped open, a projector flickering onto a blank wall. The Trasks held court on the couch, loud and at ease, with their little crowd orbiting them. Jalen and Khalil walked in with a few others, aiming for an empty spot near the wall. They weren't looking for trouble, but trouble found them anyway. As they passed the couch, Caleb leaned back and said it just loud enough, "Hope the movie's not in HD, don't want to give anyone a headache." Sierra's laugh followed like a slap. Mason, seated beside them, joined in half a second later, more out of reflex than belief. Jalen stopped walking. He didn't say a word. Just turned and looked at Caleb. Caleb shrugged, hands up. It was a joke. "No one's laughing," Jalen replied, voice flat. "Not my fault you can't take it." Caleb leaned forward now, voice low and venomous. "You don't belong here, man. This camp's for players, not charity cases." The room shifted. A few kids turned up the movie volume to drown it out. But the tension had already filled the space like smoke. Jalen didn't blink. "We'll see who belongs when we're on the same court." Caleb snorted. "That won't happen. They don't put amateurs up against ranked players." "Guess you better hope that doesn't change," Jalen said, and walked off. He didn't need to look back to know Sierra was staring. Across the room, Coach Wexler had heard every word. He'd paused at the hallway entrance, gripping a half-finished protein shake. He didn't say anything. Not yet. But his silence? It had weight now. Because silence in a place like Hawthorne didn't mean peace. It meant pressure was building. The next morning, heat hung in the air like a warning. The sun was still rising, but already kids moved slower, sweated faster, complained louder. Coaches barked about hydration. Shade tents popped up around the courts. The clay baked underfoot. Court 3. Jalen versus Caleb. Because of course. Jalen stepped up to the line. Khalil was 2 courts down with his own group, but his eyes kept flicking back. Watching. Ready. Caleb bounced the ball twice. "Don't flinch," he said with a smirk. "Wouldn't want you blaming the sun." Jalen didn't answer. He didn't need to. The serve came fast, too fast. Wide. Illegal. Fault. Coach Wexler called. Second serve, this time, it curved sharply. But Jalen was ready. He returned it deep, catching Caleb off guard. Caleb barely got a racket on it, flubbing it high. Jalen closed in and tapped the ball over the net. Point. The second serve came with more fire. Caleb muttered something under his breath and slammed the ball at Jalen's feet. Legal. Barely. But Jalen didn't flinch. He dropped back, blocked it, and returned a wicked drive that clipped the net and dribbled over. Winner. Coach Wexler raised his voice from across the court. Nice touch, Bryant. Across the complex, Sierra scowled. Caleb cracked. He's cherry-picking, he barked. Waiting for mistakes. That's not real tennis. Wexler walked over. Winning tennis is real tennis. Back to the line. For the next 10 minutes, Jalen carved Caleb up. No smirks. No celebrations. Just quiet dominance. Every hit was a message, we don't need to prove we belong. We're already here. Khalil, meanwhile, was finishing up his own rotation. His partner, Arjun, a shy kid with a mean topspin, grinned after a slick double switch. You two, he said, meaning Khalil and Jalen, you move like you're wired together. Khalil nodded. Grew up like that. They walked off the court together. Not friends, not yet. But close, the kind of unspoken respect you can't fake. As they passed court 1, Sierra intercepted them. Cute, she said. Got your little fan club now. Khalil didn't even slow down. You talk like we're not on the same schedule. Sierra rolled her eyes. Please. A couple decent volleys don't make you stars. My brother's nationally ranked. Khalil stopped. Maybe, he said. But backgrounds don't miss. She blinked. Just for a second. Enough. Coach Wexler blew his whistle. Break time. The twins headed for the tent, sharing one bottle of water between them like they'd done since they were kids playing with dead balls and cracked strings. You see that last serve? Jalen asked. Khalil nodded. He grunts louder than he hits. You feel her attitude? Khalil cracked a tired smile. Every serve. Back at the main building, Wexler met with 2 senior coaches. You seeing what I'm seeing? One asked. Wexler nodded. Yeah. But I'm also seeing how the Trasks are reacting. You want me to talk to their parents? Wexler paused. Not yet. Let the tournament do the talking. He said it calm. But something in his eyes had shifted. And that night, just before lights out, it came. A note. Plain white paper. Taped to the twins' dorm door. Black marker. Sharp strokes. Don't get too comfortable. The court doesn't lie. Jalen peeled it off. Read it. Handed it to Khalil. No words. Just wait. Khalil crumpled it and tossed it in the waste bin. Let em talk, he said. We'll speak louder. And the next morning, the draw would drop. And with it, the storm they'd been waiting for. The camp bulletin board looked like something out of a prep school yearbook, neat columns, perfect fonts, color-coded brackets. But when the weekend draw was posted, all anyone cared about was the matchup near the top. Team 4, Jalen Bryant and Khalil Bryant. Versus Team 5, Caleb Trask and Sierra Trask. Khalil stared at it in disbelief. Then turned to Jalen, who just walked up with a tray of toast and eggs. No way, Khalil said, pointing. Jalen leaned in, scanned the names. His eyes didn't move, but his jaw tightened slightly. He didn't say anything, just gave a small nod, the kind that meant, it's time. Behind them, Sierra caught sight of the list. Her laugh echoed down the cafeteria aisle. Small, but sharp. Like a warning bell. Well, she said, arms folded. Guess we're making it easy for round 1. Caleb didn't say a word. Just rolled his shoulders like he was already warming up to crush them. Across the room, Coach Wexler stood by the coffee machine, pretending not to listen. But he wasn't sipping anything. He was watching reactions. Body language. Smirks and clenched fists. And when he saw the Bryant twins simply nod and move on, no boasting, no whining, he blinked slowly. He'd seen a lot of kids try to fake composure. But this? This was something else. Back at the dorm, the twins sat side by side on their bunks, going over strategy like professionals. The same gear from back home was laid out in front of them, old sweatbands, one roll of grip tape, their lucky towel from Decatur's city finals. Straight up, Jalen said, we play our game. No tricks. No drama. Mix it up early, Khalil added. Test her net. He leans left, we push wide. We own the inside. Jalen nodded. They're gonna expect us to fold. Let em. Khalil tapped his pen against a small spiral notebook. Pop was right. This ain't about them. It never was. That night, Jalen couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, knees pulled to his chest, watching the moths beat against the glass. Outside, Hawthorne Tennis Academy was quiet, serene, too polished to feel real. He thought about their father, working nights in the Georgia heat, patching up busted air units just to keep the lights on. He thought about the cracked court where they learned how to serve, aiming through rusted fences and potholes. And now here they were. On the edge of something bigger. Tomorrow wouldn't be just a match. It would be the answer to every look they got when they stepped out of that Ford Ranger. Saturday morning arrived with thick, humid air. A storm sat just beyond the hills, pressing the sky like a lid on a boiling pot. Parents started arriving before 9 a.m., camp chairs, umbrellas, iced lattes in hand. The whispers spread fast. Bryant twins versus the Trasks. Coach posted it on purpose. First round. That's a statement. Court 2 had been marked off with fresh lines, new shade tents, and a cooler station courtside. It felt more like a mini-tour final than a camp match. Sierra arrived first, crisp visor, hair tied back military tight. Caleb followed, black compression sleeves up to his biceps like he was prepping for war. The Bryant twins showed up quietly. Same duffel bag. Same patched grips. Same old warm-up hoodies from a tournament no one else remembered. They didn't look nervous. They looked ready. Coach Wexler stepped forward with the clipboard. Best of 3 sets. 8-game pro format. Tie-break at 6-all. Line calls are your own. I expect respect, effort, and clean play. They nodded. Only Jalen answered. Yes, sir. Wexler flipped a coin. Heads. Trasks to serve. Caleb opened with power. His first serve blazed in, 110 miles per hour, flat and sharp. Jalen barely got a frame on it. Fault. Second serve, clean. Jalen got under it, drove it deep. Sierra rushed the net and clipped a volley just past Khalil. 15, love. But then, momentum shifted. Next point, Khalil anticipated the spin, stepped in early, and ripped a return straight down the middle. Sierra lunged. Missed. 15 all. Whispers rose from the crowd. By the 4th game, it was 2-2. And something in the air had changed. Jalen and Khalil weren't reacting, they were controlling. Their pace was relentless, their positioning smart. They weren't trying to win pretty. They were just trying to win. And it was working. Coach Wexler leaned against the fence, arms crossed. He didn't speak. But every time the Bryant twins returned a seemingly impossible ball, his head tilted forward just an inch. Then came the controversy. Game 5. Khalil served. Long rally. Jalen hit a slicing backhand that kissed the sideline. In. Jalen called. Sierra threw up her hand. That was long. You didn't see it, Jalen replied, cool as ever. Caleb walked up to the net. Let's call a supervisor. Wexler cleared his throat from the sideline. Replay the point, he said evenly. No argument. Khalil reset his feet. No eye roll. No muttering. That was their difference. They didn't rattle. And that unnerved the Trasks more than anything else. By the 6th game, Sierra was slamming the court with her feet in frustration. Caleb's mouth pressed into a line. At 5-3, Khalil stepped up to serve for the set. First serve, ace. Second serve, rally, slice, volley, point. 30, love. Another winner from Jalen brought it to 40, love. Championship point for the first set. Khalil tossed, served. Sierra sliced. Jalen pounced. Volley. Deep corner. Winner. Set, Bryant twins, 6-3. Sierra ripped off her visor and slammed it into her bag. Caleb didn't say anything. But his eyes? They screamed disbelief. Coach Wexler said nothing. But a small, proud smile cracked the corner of his lips. And the crowd? They finally clapped. Not because they were told to. But because they couldn't help it. The air under the shade tent during the water break wasn't any cooler, it just felt contained, like the crowd was holding its breath between sets. Players who hadn't paid attention all week now leaned forward. Phones came out. Coaches edged closer. This wasn't just a match anymore. It was a statement. Caleb sat hunched over on the bench, sweat dripping from his jaw, shoulders twitching with barely held tension. Sierra stood, arms crossed tight against her chest, jaw clenched, ponytail twitching every time she shifted her weight. "We're not losing to them," she hissed under her breath. Caleb didn't look up. "We won't. They're playing scared." But he knew it wasn't true. The twins weren't playing scared, they were playing smart. Across the net, Jalen sat with a towel over his head. Khalil bounced a tennis ball in his hand like a slow heartbeat. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. "You see how fast she's unraveling?" Jalen finally whispered. "She's used to being the one who sets the pace," Khalil replied. "We took that away." Caleb's tightening up too. "You can feel it." Khalil looked down at the ball in his hand. "Doesn't matter. We don't flinch." The whistle blew. Back to the court. The second set began sharper. Caleb had adjusted, dropping his serve speed but increasing spin. The ball dipped low, twisted funny, forcing awkward footwork. He snagged the first game with a slick inside-out ace and a passing shot that even Jalen couldn't reach in time. 1-0, Trasks. But the Twins didn't fold. They slowed the game, extended rallies, and made Sierra run. On one exchange, Jalen whipped a down-the-line forehand that Sierra didn't even move for. But her voice? That still moved. "Out," she barked. Jalen blinked. It landed inside. "Call a supervisor then." Sierra snapped, already turning to Coach Wexler. Wexler stepped toward the net. "Everyone breathe. Replay the point." Sierra glared. "Of course. Always favoring." Coach Wexler's head turned sharply. "Replay the point." Jalen didn't argue. He didn't even glance at her. Just reset, bounced the ball twice, served again. The silence after that was louder than any outburst. Then came the moment the match turned ugly. Fourth game. Score 2-1, Bryant Twins. Tight rally. Caleb lunged at the net, but instead of placing the ball, he blasted it straight at Khalil's chest. The ball hit hard. Dead center. Khalil stumbled, arms thrown up too late, the thump echoing against his ribcage. The crowd gasped. A few kids sat up straighter. One parent stood. Jalen sprinted across the court, already at his brother's side. "You good?" he asked, eyes wide. Khalil winced, nodding. "Fine." Coach Wexler approached slowly. "You all right, Bryant?" "Yeah." Caleb, standing behind the baseline, didn't flinch. "That shot was legal." "No one said it wasn't," Wexler replied evenly. But his eyes said everything. He turned back to Khalil. "Let me know if you need a timeout." Khalil rolled his shoulder, readjusted his grip. "I don't." And just like that, something changed. Because they didn't break. They didn't retaliate. They didn't scream. They just played. And Sierra started cracking. Double fault. Wide return. Miscommunication at the net. "Would you help for once?" she snapped at Caleb after a misread volley. Caleb fired back through clenched teeth, "Maybe if you stopped panicking." Meanwhile, the twins never raised their voices. Their communication was constant. Efficient. "Watch left. Up on net." Clear cross. Nothing wasted. And the coaches noticed. Coach Miles, sitting on the far bleachers with his sunglasses pushed to the top of his head, leaned toward another instructor. They don't play with ego. That's rare. Coach Wexler nodded subtly. That's dangerous. At 5-2, match point arrived like a freight train. Khalil served. Zoe lobbed the return high. Jalen dropped it short, sharp. Sierra rushed forward, too late. She missed. 6-3, 6-2. Match, Bryant twins. There was a moment of stunned silence. The whole court held still, like even the clay wasn't sure what had just happened. Then it came, first from a bench parent near the baseline, then from a player leaning against the fence. Clapping. Real, honest applause. No pity. No forced smiles. Just respect. The Trasks. Sierra hesitated at the net, then stuck out her hand. Caleb shook first, fast, tight grip, no eye contact. Sierra didn't say a word. The Bryant twins offered a handshake. Nothing dramatic. Just steady. The match was over. But what it meant? That was just beginning. As they packed up their gear, Coach Wexler approached slowly. He didn't have the clipboard now, just a water bottle in hand, arms crossed. Good match, he said. Clean. Focused. You stayed composed. Thanks, Jalen replied. Khalil nodded once. Wexler hesitated, then added, if either of you ever consider going beyond regionals, you've got more than just the mechanics. You've got the mindset. Then he muttered, almost to himself, not every kid here learns that. He walked away, but the message stayed behind. That night, back in the dorms, the boys found another note taped to their door. But this one was different. Typed. Neat. You proved it. Not just with the game. With the way you held yourselves. Respect. No name. No signature. Just truth. Sunday morning rose over Hawthorne Tennis Academy like the sky had been rinsed clean, cooler air, calmer skies, and something lighter in the way people moved. But for the Bryant twins, the shift wasn't in the weather. It was in the looks. Not the stares that questioned. Not the whispers behind coffee cups. Something else. Acknowledgement. Some players nodded when the twins passed. Others stepped aside on the court paths, not out of fear, but out of respect. There were no cheers. No fanfare. But that space between silence and admiration. They'd finally stepped into it. The Trasks. Gone. Not physically, they were still on campus. But emotionally. Withdrawn. Detached. At breakfast, Sierra barely touched her food. Caleb scrolled his phone endlessly, expression blank. They'd lost their next match in straight sets, not because the opponents were stronger, but because they couldn't recover from what happened on court 2. They didn't know how to lose. And the Bryants? They knew how to survive. The semi-final match was posted just before lunch. Team 4, Bryant Twins. Versus Team 6, Jordan and Elias Beck. The Beck twins were tall, well-coached, and clean-cut, mirror images of what most people expected Hawthorne prodigies to look like. But looks didn't win matches. Focus did. By now, the coaches had stopped underestimating Jalen and Khalil. So had the players. The semi-final wasn't flashy. It was surgical. First set, 6-2. Second set, 6-4. The Bryant twins didn't drop a single service game. And more importantly, they didn't crack under pressure. They moved like a machine, two parts of the same engine, anticipating each other's shots, adjusting mid-rally, never wasting motion. Outside the court, Coach Wexler stood with the camp director. She was holding a clipboard. Watching closely. Who are they? She asked. Bryant boys. Georgia. Coached by their father, Wexler answered. He must have done something right. Wexler didn't respond immediately. His eyes were locked on the court, where Jalen had just sprinted wide for a save and Khalil followed it with a perfect drop shot. Yeah, he finally said. He did. That night, the dorms buzzed with packing. Kids were stuffing shirts into duffels, folding posters, trading socials. But in the corner of the common room, Jalen and Khalil sat quietly, reviewing notes under a desk lamp. Khalil had written 3 things in his notebook. 1. Serve wide to righties. 2. Stay off back foot at net. 3. Let them watch. Jalen pointed at the last one. Let them watch. Khalil didn't look up. Whole camp's been watching. Might as well give them something to remember. Jalen grinned. We already did. For the first time since they arrived, there was laughter in their room. Not tired laughter. Not bitter. Just clean. Real. They went to bed early. No music. No phones. Just sleep. Because tomorrow wasn't just about a trophy. It was about everything they'd worked for. Finals day. The courts looked different. Cleaner. More manicured. Parents sat in neat rows. There were folding chairs, coolers, fans. Even someone live streaming on their phone. Jalen and Khalil didn't notice. They were too busy stretching. Dripping. Breathing. Coach Wexler read the final matchup aloud. Team 4, Jalen and Khalil Bryant. Versus. Team 2, Mason Bradley and Zoe Hart. Mason was solid, a smart, composed player with court sense. Zoe was fast, aggressive, and had trained at Hawthorne for 3 summers straight. It wouldn't be easy. But it wouldn't be new. The match started tight. Each point stretched into long rallies. Zoe nailed a cross-court winner early. Mason lobbed deep, pulling Khalil out of position. But the Bryant twins didn't panic. They adjusted. Jalen responded with a backhand slice that barely cleared the net. Khalil followed with a volley down the line. They weren't overpowering, they were outthinking. At 4-3 in the first set, the crowd started clapping between points. Not just the parents. The players. Even some who hadn't spoken to the Bryants all week. It wasn't bandwagon applause. It was recognition. When they closed the first set 6-4, Wexler clapped once. Quiet. Firm. The second set began with fire. Zoe and Mason came out swinging, risky shots, tighter angles, more net pressure. They won 2 quick games. 2-0. But instead of rushing to catch up, the Bryant twins slowed the tempo. They stretched rallies. Extended points. Forced errors without forcing themselves. They made the match theirs. They pushed Zoe into corners, made Mason return awkward balls, baited them into frustration. The murmurs from the crowd turned into commentary. They're not just talented, they're disciplined. They don't force errors, they let them happen. Coach Wexler stood by the fence, arms crossed. Not tense anymore. Just, proud. At 5-4, the Bryant twins stepped up to serve for the match. Jalen bounced the ball. Calm. Quiet. First serve, ace. Second serve, Mason returned deep. Khalil was already at net. Volley, point. 30, love. Next point, Jalen hit long. 30-15. Then came a high return from Zoe. Khalil timed his approach. Slam. Left corner. 40-15. Championship point. Jalen looked at Khalil. Khalil nodded once. Serve. Return. Float. Volley. Point. Game. Set. Match. Bryant twins. For a beat, no one moved. Then it hit. The cheers. Not polite. Not uncertain. Earned. Mason stepped forward first. Respect, he said. Y'all were locked in. Zoe, still catching her breath, smiled. Seriously, that was next level. No sarcasm. No pretense. Just truth. Coach Wexler approached slowly. He didn't look like a man handing out compliments easily. But this time, you two played like pros. Not just skill, you led. You adjusted. You didn't chase the moment. You owned it. He paused. I'll be calling some people. USTA. Junior Scouts. No promises, but they need to see this. Jalen raised an eyebrow. We didn't come here for scouts. I know, Wexler said. That's why you deserve them. That night, there were no interviews. No trophy parade. Just two boys sitting on the steps outside their dorm, tired arms, sore backs, and hearts so full they didn't need to say a word. You think Pop's off work yet? Khalil asked. Jalen checked his phone. Yeah. You want a call? Jalen smiled. Nah. Let him hear it on the news. The vans rolled into Hawthorne early Monday morning. Car trunks popped open. Luggage thudded onto pavement. There were hugs, selfies, loud goodbyes. Kids swapped social handles, promised to stay in touch, promised things none of them would follow through on. The Bryant twins didn't linger. They stood near their dad's truck, the same beat-up Ford Ranger that had turned heads 2 weeks earlier. Only now, those same heads nodded silently when they passed. Same shoes. Same bag. Same boys. But different. You could see it in how they stood. Gregory Bryant leaned against the truck, arms folded, smile barely there. The proud kind. The silent, weighty kind. You boys ready? He asked. Yeah, Khalil said. More than, Jalen added. They were loading their bag when a voice called out. Sierra. She stood just behind them, arms crossed, hair down now, visor gone. I didn't think you'd win, she said honestly. No sarcasm. No spin. Just flat honesty, as raw as anything she'd said all camp. Jalen didn't flinch. We knew. She hesitated. You played clean. Khalil raised an eyebrow. You say that like it's surprising. Sierra shifted awkwardly. I didn't expect to lose to people who didn't care what anyone thought. Jalen studied her face. Not to judge, but to understand. That's why you did, he said quietly. And that was that. They climbed into the truck. Gregory started the engine, pulling away from the same polished courts where their story began. But this time, the gates didn't close behind them like barriers. They closed like a book. A chapter finished. Not the end. Back home, the court was still cracked. The net still sagged. And the rackets? Still duct-taped. But when Jalen and Khalil stepped onto that faded clay the next morning, something was different. They weren't playing to prove anything. They were just playing. And across town, quietly, in a scout's inbox, in a coach's notes, in a conversation that began with, "You should have seen these kids." Their names were moving. Not because they'd screamed for attention. Because they'd earned it. Some stories are about proving people wrong. But the best stories? They're about proving yourself right. Jalen and Khalil didn't come to Hawthorne to fight, they came to play. And in doing so, they didn't just silence their critics. They awakened respect. They reminded everyone that greatness doesn't arrive in shiny shoes or showboating. It comes in grit. In grace. In quiet domination. As their father said, doesn't matter how pretty the court is. Matters if the ball comes back. And they made sure it always did. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder. Your background doesn't define your ceiling, your mindset does. Leave a comment telling us your favorite moment from this story, and don't forget to subscribe to True Echo for more stories that cut through the noise, speak to your heart, and stick with you long after the credits roll.